and we assume they are quote unquote happy. And we say, that's what I want. But you've never, have you ever had somebody say, hey, are you fulfilled? You've heard people say, hey, are you happy? And some people will say yes. But I've never heard somebody say, hey, how fulfilled are you?
Fulfillment is the soul's recognition of alignment with one's highest calling. And by calling, what I mean is maximizing one's own unique potential. Unique is the key word. Maximizing one's own unique greatest level of contribution.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was 1215. What's stopping you from letting go? Today, for episode number 1216, happy Saturday. You don't want to be happy all the time. Little controversial. Why are you smiling?
Because I'm in a good mood. And because I'm fixing my mic again. And I thought you'd think it was hilarious if you looked up.
I was actually looking down because I have the episode list in front of me. So when I looked up, I just saw you smiling like a weirdo. That's why I started laughing. Yeah.
You reading the episode titles off that's a rookie move.
What do you mean?
You got to memorize those things.
This is how I do it.
Okay.
Because you got to, again.
Coming from the guy who's never done an intro. Yeah, although right. I do the intro for Conscious Couples.
I'll have to give it a listen.
You'll have to.
I'll send you my feedback via snail mail.
Thank you.
So, you don't want to be happy all the time. If I saw an episode title like this 5 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, you do. Doesn't everybody want to be happy all the time? Isn't that what we're playing for as human beings? And I was on a podcast the other day, and it was a very good episode with somebody who was very well spoken and somebody who was a very deep thinker. And I said this to this person, and I said, I trust that I can say this to you and you won't get offended. I would be happier if I was laying in bed watching UFC right now. I would be. I just would be happier. But I would not be, Alan's freaking out, but I would not be nearly as fulfilled. That I can tell you. I would be happier sleeping in every day. I would. Getting up early sucks. I don't like it. But I would not be nearly as fulfilled. That's really the goal of this episode, is to understand, look, happiness and fulfillment are two drastically different things. And I think a lot of us believe we want happiness, but it's weird where unless you have some form of fulfillment, happiness isn't really positive for a lot of us. Because maybe it doesn't feel like we've earned it. Maybe it feels like we're just laying around, whatever it may be. I told this person, I said, look, I love UFC and I love watching 7 hours of UFC on a Saturday, but I will tell you something. 7 hours of UFC on a Saturday makes me happier when I had a really productive, fulfilling week, because I just 80% fulfillment, 20% happiness. And I said, that's a really good balance for me. Maybe it's not like that for everybody. Maybe that's not the right balance. But I think we start this life and we see people ahead of us with nice cars, nice homes, great relationships, great bodies, whatever it is. And we assume they are quote unquote happy. And we say, that's what I want. But you've never, have you ever had somebody say, hey, are you fulfilled? You've heard people say, hey, are you happy? And some people will say yes. But I've never heard somebody say, hey, how fulfilled are you? On a scale of 1 to 10. Nobody's ever asked me that. You have, Alan. But what if we are optimizing for the wrong thing and we're optimizing for happiness? And I learned most of this from you, Alan. Happiness is more results-based. And that's why I said in this episode, you don't want to be happy all the time. Because if you're happy all the time, if you're chasing happiness all the time, you're probably in for a life of regret later.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics in the entire world. I know you knew that going into this. I do think that we got it wrong. We missed the mark a little bit. Human beings missed the mark. And what I mean by that is that we're taught since we were little kids that life is about happiness, the pursuit of happiness. Life is about being happy. If you ask any parent what do they want for their kid, they all say, I want them to be happy. But we don't really know what happiness is. We don't really know how to get it, and we definitely don't know how to sustain it. And it's different for every one of us. I've spent my life, no exaggeration, looking around and being concerned. I looked around and I saw unfulfilled marriages, and I saw unfulfilled people doing unfulfilled careers. I don't know why, but someone's calling me right now. Some random number. Unfulfilled answering phones. No, I'm joking. So I really did, though. I remember being a kid, and I don't know where I got this from, but I looked around and I saw a lot of unfulfilled people. I remember I was scared of marriage because I saw miserable marriages. I remember I was scared of work because I looked around and everyone seemed to like they hated their job. Everybody seemed like, oh, well, you got to go to work again. I hate Mondays. Like, thank God it's Friday. Now I realize, in hindsight, by the way, I want to clarify this. I realize in hindsight, the law of attraction of the environment that I grew up in is not a super fulfilled group of people. You attract what you are. And if you're deeply unfulfilled, you'll most likely attract other unfulfilled people. And if you're deeply fulfilled, you'll most likely attract fulfilled people. The book that I read regularly, I would say every night, but it's not every night. It's most nights. I was reading it last night. Is called A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. For those of you who have never heard of this book, it's unbelievable. It's a memoir of Viktor Frankl's experience in concentration camps during World War II, in Auschwitz, and it's just a magnificent book that talks about how even under the worst circumstances, you can find fulfillment. Not necessarily pleasure, not necessarily joy, not necessarily happiness, but you can find meaning. And this is why I work so damn hard at NLU, because it's meaningful work. There are a lot of things that Kevin and I could be doing with our time right now that are a lot more profitable than this. Okay? There are a lot more profitable industries than the self-improvement industry, particularly when you really want to help people with the fundamentals that aren't as shiny. But there's nothing that's more meaningful, in my opinion. That is the most meaningful work that there is. That I don't want to do any other work. I did a free call with a listener earlier. We went 40 minutes. I'm never getting that 40 minutes back, but it was deeply meaningful. And I know that I changed that person's life. For fulfillment, it's about meaning and it's about alignment. That's what I've come to understand. I have a framework optimizing for fulfillment, pyramid of fulfillment. It's 21 categories and it's got 5 levels, and the first level is physical needs, and the second level is mental, emotional, and physical needs. The third level is mental and emotional needs. The fourth and fifth level are the spiritual needs. And it's pretty intense, and we teach it in group coaching, and that's great. So to say I've studied this exhaustively is an understatement. What I can tell you in one sentence, fulfillment is the soul's recognition of alignment with one's highest calling. And by calling, what I mean is maximizing one's own unique potential. Unique is the key word. Maximizing one's own unique greatest level of contribution, serving others, and then quality of life. But not quality of life in the moment. Before this episode, Kev, full transparency, I wanted to go downstairs and I wanted to eat chocolate out of my freezer. We've got like chocolate on chocolate in the freezer. We love dark chocolate caramel, Ghirardelli. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it is awesome in there. We've got Reese's, we've got white chocolate, we've got dark chocolate, we've got it all, man. Love it. Love it. But I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because when I eat, I get sluggish, and this episode would have been terrible, particularly when I eat too much sugar. But anyways, the point that I'm making is that would have been very pleasurable. That would have been much more pleasurable. But I would not have been as fulfilled because I do a most important win, most important improvement in my peak performance tracker every day. And most important improvement is don't eat until the evening because I get very tired, I get very sluggish, and naps in the middle of the day are not optimal for our greatest level of contribution. And I promise you, every time I eat, usually I have to nap it out on this yoga mat down here in my office and or downstairs on the couch or my bedroom. But the point that I'm making is that fulfillment really is alignment with your soul's calling. And I think that all of us kind of intuitively know when we're fulfilled and we know when we're not. And I think regret is the other tool here of how fulfilled are you and how much do you regret that person, place, thing, or idea. That's my barometer. That's my barometer. That's what I use to coach. That's what I use in my own life. It's in 2022, was that the most? I was on the phone with a client. His name's Miles. Shout out to Miles. Yesterday, I said, was 2022 the most fulfilled you've ever been in terms of a year? Best year of your life? And he said, yes, but not in one area. And I said, what? And he said, my social life. I feel like back in university, they call it uni. He's from the UK. Uni, I felt like I had a better social life. I said, okay, cool. Now we know what to go to work on. Where you feel unfulfilled, that is what you go to work on. And happiness really is fleeting. It's vague. It's tough to catch. It's like chasing butterflies that you never actually catch. And I don't think it's useful. I don't think it's nearly as useful. I mean, we all know that watching Netflix eating ice cream is pleasurable, but if you do that long enough, you will hate your life. And that's just the way it works.
I had a very interesting, so last week, if you've been listening, I had COVID. I still currently, I'm good now. I think I'm technically through it, but I'm still, I sound sick. And it's like, there was a part of me, because before I tested, I knew I was sick. So I was like, look, I can't, there's no way I'm going to be able to do my normal day. And it was a Saturday anyway. So I had 3 things. I was like, hey, I'm sick. I can't talk. I'm coughing. I'm going to have to reschedule this. There was a part of me that was like, hell yeah, I'm going to watch TV all day. I'll be honest. And then when I got like 5 hours in, I was like, oh God, what am I going to watch next? Like, I don't want to play video games. I don't feel good. I can't watch another episode of The Office. Like, what am I going to do? And I got bored. You don't really get bored when you're chasing fulfillment. That's an interesting thing. And I said this on the podcast the other day, on another podcast the other day. I said, look, my dream car, I have the little mini version of it right here. Will that bring me happiness when I buy it? Yes, it will. But that happiness will go away. I don't know how long, right? I mean, it's going to feel really good 5 minutes in and then 10 minutes in. Every time I get in it, I'll get a spike of something, but that's not going to fix my problems. I'm not going to fix my problems. It's not going to make me proud of what I've accomplished. That's a purchase, right? That's something I bought with money. It's not something I created with hard work and intention and character. And that's a completely different life. And again, I really believe, and this is just my balance, but I like a good 80-20. Saturday night, tomorrow, if you're listening to this tonight, UFC is on, and it hasn't been on in a month. They take a month around New Year's, and it hasn't been on. You know where I'm going to be. My butt's going to be on the couch, and I'm going to be watching UFC, and I'm going to be very, very, very happy. Not just because it's super pleasurable, but also because I'm very fulfilled in what we're doing. And this is the last thing I'll say. And Alan, I remember I said this, and I think you thought I was joking, but we were walking out of the studio one time, and we were talking about something very similar to this. And I said, honestly, drinking alcohol, smoking weed, and watching porn are all awesome. Like, they feel really good. I'm not suggesting you do that. It's not a recommendation. They feel really good because they do make you happy in the moment. They do. That's what they're designed for. But if that becomes the entirety of your life, you're not going to be a very happy person.
No way.
There's too much, like, you can chase happiness too much. You can chase pleasure too much. But, and I remember you were laughing, and I was like, no, I mean it. Like, that's true. I mean, those things can bring you momentary happiness, but anything in too much of a form is going to be too much. And if you're optimizing, that's the thing. Love ice cream. Huge fan of ice cream. There's a big difference between eating ice cream twice a week versus eating ice cream for every meal except for twice a week. Those are just 2 drastically different lives, right? There's just 2 drastically different lives. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about in this episode. If you're optimizing for happiness, your life's going to look really good on social media, but you're probably not going to have a lot of really good feelings of pride and accomplishment internally. And I really think happiness is external stuff. I do. Now more than ever, I think happiness is like external stuff in the real world. I think fulfillment is you, to Alan's point, but it's you creating something that's on purpose. It's you growing and evolving towards something. It's you accomplishing. It's you evolving. I really think that's it. Fulfillment is you. If you think about it, Amazon fulfillment. What does that mean when you fulfill an order? You make it whole. You make the thing whole. I put it in the box. I wrapped up the box. I taped the box up. That order is now fulfilled. It's ready to get sent out into the world, to make whole. So I think that's what we're all playing for. I think that's what we're all missing. And this is how you know. There's a lot of people out there who have nicer cars than you. They might have nicer homes than you. They might have what seems like nicer relationships than you. But it doesn't mean that internally they're in a better place than you are. And I just think that's an interesting sentiment.
Next Level University and Kevin is exactly where you need to be if you're a podcaster. When I first started out just a few months ago, I had no clue on the direction I was going. I was getting hustled by another company that was giving me not even close to the value that Kevin and Next Level U was giving me. They literally changed the trajectory of my podcast, have helped me out tremendously. They understand the clients. I promise you, you will not go wrong with dealing with Kevin and Next Level U. I'll see you there.
There's so much. I could talk on this forever, but when you say optimizing, I think it's important that we ask. Two questions. I know we got to go. Okay. One, Kev, I will say this. I think that you used to optimize for pleasure and happiness a lot more than you do now. And I remember you and I had a rumble, a heated debate, a passionate discussion in the studio one time. And I said, Kev, you got to understand, I know that what you're doing right now is way harder, way more challenging. I know you're delaying gratification every day. I know it's difficult. It sucks. Starting a business is really difficult, particularly in the beginning when you have all of the hard work and very little of the revenue. But anyways, so I remember saying, like, what's interesting though is, aren't you more fulfilled than you used to be when you used to smoke more or drink more or watch porn or whatever it was, right? And you said yes. And I said, just be careful not to swing back. Find your right harmony, find your right balance, but don't swing back, because we did it on the board. I remember it was 2 circles, very simple. It was, what percentage of your life back then when you were miserable and had suicidal ideation was pleasure? And you said 80%. I said, what percentage was fulfillment and challenge? And I think it was just challenge. And you said 20%. And I said, okay, what about now? And you said 80% challenge, 20% pleasure. I said, which one is more fulfilling? Remember this conversation? Yeah. I said, just make sure you don't swing it all the way back. I said, I've noticed that it's swinging back a little, right? Back in the playing some video games days, 5 hours of video games on a Sunday, whatever, do you? But that was what I was trying to explain. So to ask you the question, to flip this on you, I know we got to go. Kev, what did you think about fulfillment back then versus now? Because I do think this is one of the most fundamentally misunderstood concepts in the world, and it took me 30 years to figure this out. So I understand. I mean, I remember thinking from the get, like, something's off. Why is everyone unhappy? I don't get it. Like, including me, I was miserable too. I was trying to figure out why. I had a pleasure-centered paradigm. I grew up the alcohol thing, or that, you name it, right? It's like, why are we all so unhappy? We have so much abundance. We have freedom. We have so many technologies that we never had. Like, why? What is the deal? I had to figure this out. So for you, what would you explain to you back then about this topic? And then also, we need to define optimization, because I don't know if everyone knows really what that means.
Do you want to define that first?
Okay, so optimization means, okay, good analogy. If you have a garden and you're optimizing for the strawberries are most likely going to be what you protect most and focus on most. So you're optimizing for strawberries, but you still have a whole garden. The strawberries most likely will come out best because you're making sure you're protecting them the most. I think that's
the main focus.
A good analogy. Yeah, main focus. Yep.
This is the hard thing. I think this is like the hardest part about fulfillment. Number one, it's invisible. Number two, it does almost nothing for your ego. So you don't really, I don't know if you really want it until you get a taste of it in a weird way. That, for me, it's like, it's invisible. I can't see how fulfilled you are. I have no idea. I mean, I do, because I know you. And there's like energetic cues, of course, but when you see somebody walking down the street and yeah, their shoulders are hunched and they're looking down, you could probably assume they're not that fulfilled. Sure. But that's assuming you know what fulfillment looks like. And I just didn't. I think fulfillment is something that's kind of invisible, especially in a digital world. You can't tell when these humans are fulfilled. I hope if you're watching or listening, you've just seen us so many times that it's like, this is who we are. I mean, you can only fake it for so long. I couldn't fake it for 1,200 episodes. That's part of it. And I think the other part of it is it's very hard to compare fulfillment. It's very hard to measure because it's very hard to recognize. And I think I do believe one of the things that stops people from chasing fulfillment is there's almost no ego hit. There's like, I get to the end of the day, I have nothing to show for it necessarily. Like nothing physical. I'm yet to bring anything from the physical world into reality. I mean, I did a lot of good.
Can you share the crying moment when you got the message though? Because that I think is like a lagging measure of fulfillment.
Yeah, I said this, I think I went a little bit more in depth when I said this maybe last week, but I got a message from somebody in the community who said this person's husband really looked up to me. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And this person just really trusted a man for the first time. They hadn't really trusted somebody like that before. And I was just crying. I cried for like a half hour. I couldn't figure out why. And part of it, and I kept saying this to myself, I kept saying, I've just worked so hard. I've worked so hard over the last 6 years that it feels really good to be recognized for that. Like that feels really, really, really good. And to your point, I think it's like, it's proof that's what we're doing matters, even though I know that. And it's proof that what we're doing is working. But it's this like, for the last 6 years, you're kind of putting out this like invisible energy of good and this invisible energy of positivity and self-improvement. And then eventually things come back. It's like, oh, that feels really good. Does it make me happy? Yes, but it also makes me fulfilled. It makes me know that I'm on purpose in alignment with what I should be doing. But you don't get all that at once. And that's why I'm convinced, like for us, Next Level Live, we did one last year, one of the most fulfilling days of my life. Why? Because it was one of the hardest days of my life, but I got to see things immediately. That was interesting too. It's like, wow, we made this real so fast. Interesting. So I don't know. I think for me, I didn't know what fulfillment was 5 years ago. So I can't, if you said, hey, don't you want a more fulfilling life? I probably would have said, I don't know what that means. That's woo woo. That's spiritual, something I don't believe in. Now I just understand that a life of pure happiness is not sustainable because you don't really appreciate the happiness. I mean, if all you have is pleasure, is it really pleasure?
Right.
You know,
because there's no contrast.
Right.
Yeah, you don't know what a really good day is until you've had a really bad one.
Yeah. All right, we gotta get you off here because you got a coaching call.
I do have one tiny thing to say.
Okay.
So, and I know I have a coaching call in 5 minutes, 6 minutes. You were talking and I had something the 1,000th episode. That was like a thing for us. We were both, so if you listen to it, if you haven't listened to it, check it out. It's just basically us crying for a half an hour. But that I think is what fulfillment, it was a fulfillment episode. It wasn't a pleasurable episode. As a matter of fact, it was actually quite emotional. So like it wasn't fun, it wasn't pleasurable, but it was deeply fulfilling. And I think that the very last thing I'll say, I promise, $1 in the jar, you're never going to feel pleasure during a tough workout. Emilia and I were working out last night in our basement, and it was one of the hard ones. No breaks in between sets, sweating profusely, shirt off, which was awesome because I like at-home workouts for that. And it was actually really painful, like really quite painful. But afterwards, I felt so damn good. And then we had this awesome evening together. It was fulfilling, but it wasn't pleasurable at all. And it definitely didn't make me happy. And it's not what I wanted to do. It's what I knew I should do. And I think that that's what I'll say about fulfillment is fulfillment and true love is not, I always want to do this. It's, I'm always glad I did. And I think that's the difference. Whereas with drugs or alcohol or porn or whatever it is, you want to do it, but you know you probably shouldn't and it's not going to be fulfilling. Whereas the gym, a tough workout, a tough conversation, a tough podcast episode, you don't really want to do it. You're almost scared to do it, but you're always glad you did and you feel empowered after. And I think that that's the difference.
I agree. It's hard. It's a very hard thing to explain. Or, I mean, not even explain, just to philosophize on and talk about. Next Level Nation. As you know, we have a private Facebook group by the same name, Next Level Nation. And the reason I love the group, the reason I think you'll love the group if you're listening, is because it's safe. And as a dream chaser, as somebody who wants more out of life, you've probably been laughed at more than you'd like to admit. And that sucks. And we had somebody post something in there anonymously yesterday that was like it was just a very real question. And it was awesome. And there's nothing but love in that group. So if you're looking for more people like you, if you're looking for more people to support you, more aligned humans, please join our private Facebook group, Next Level Nation. The link will be in the show notes.
Kevin and I have realized not only that we've tolerated disrespect in the past and we've been bullied at times, but a lot of our community, a lot of our listeners, a lot of people in Next Level Nation have tolerated a lot of disrespect. We've had people be disrespectful in Next Level Nation and they've gotten booted. There is no disrespect. So if you want a place where you will be valued, supported, and respected, that is the place. Global community, no disrespect. Also, Next Level Live, speaking of another place that you are safe to chase your dreams, safe to be vulnerable, safe to be supported, safe to have goals and dreams, safe to want better and to get to the next level. Next Level Live, April 1st, 2023. We do this event every single year. There's going to be you and 50 other listeners in the room, 49 other listeners in the room. It's going to be an experience. You will leave that experience transformed on some level. And I've been to events before that were very transformative. When you get home, it feels weird, and then you start implementing changes. So if you want to join that, there's a link also in the show notes to the webpage. It's $97 per ticket. We are only ever selling 50 tickets, so please get your ticket immediately. We're only having 50 people in that room, and we hope to see you there.
Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1217. When is the right time to give up on someone? I know this week's episodes have been pretty heavy, but I'm just going on what the intuition tells me that will help you the most. So that will be our episode for Sunday. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We are grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
And we will see you at, wait for it, the next level.